Hey everyone. You know, a couple weeks ago, I should say, I did a review. I did reviews on Disney's pilot for the Disney Bonkers show, the Disney's Bonkers show, Going Bonkers, and I think New Partners on the Block. It was the review of the uncut version. And then later on, I did a review of the 7-minute Popeye short, Polyfoo Woos. So I decided to take another stab at it, and I've decided to review probably one of the darkest episodes out of Transformers Generation 1. And what I mean by darkest is this pretty much is an episode that, as a kid, you were happy to see because you were happy to see a certain character come back, but you were also sad to see because that character was apparently killed off again in a sacrificial moment. And of course, the episode I'm talking about is Dark Awakening, which is the 8th episode of Season 3. Now, Season 3 follows the events of the Transformers continuity after the 1986 movie. Now, like I said, this is the 8th episode in Season 3. And the way it's animated, I will say, definitely adds to the darkness, the tone of darkness, the dark tone, I should say, of the episode. So overall, what is this episode about? Well, in case you haven't seen Transformers the movie, the 1986 movie, and I'm sure a lot of you have already, but this is spoilers in case you haven't. Optimus Prime dies in his final fight with Megatron. About 30 minutes into the movie, Optimus Prime dies in his final battle with Megatron. So, what this does here is it brings Optimus back. But what it does, though, it brings him back in a way that's kind of off-putting to the characters. And I think even to the fans growing up at that time, like myself. And the reason it was kind of off-putting because he was acting strange. It's like, what's going on? And it wouldn't be revealed till later on, and this is spoilers in case you haven't seen the episode. It wouldn't be revealed till later on that the Quintessons, who were also introduced in the movie, and then was revealed to be the creators in the 5-part follow-up to the movie called Five Faces of Darkness. The Quintessons, who turned out to be, like I said, the creators of the Autobots and the Decepticons. It's revealed that the Quintessons basically stole Optimus's body from his tomb in the Autobot Mausoleum and basically implanted circuits in him to make him feel alive, to get him operational again. And they added a little bit of his personality. And from the way it's described in the episode is they kept a little bit of his personality, they kept a little bit of his memories. So, he would act like, so basically he could still act like himself, but carry out their plans that they have for him, or that they want him to carry out, his mission, if you will. But what happens here is they underestimate the fact that Rodimus Prime, who sees Optimus is eager to hand back the matrix of leadership to Optimus Prime. And what this does is it starts to counter the influence, the control that the Quintessons have on Optimus because of the power of the matrix of leadership. And in the end, Optimus is able to remember exactly what they did to him, and thus he's able to return the matrix of leadership back to Hot Rod, who becomes Rodimus again, just like he did in the movie. At the end of the movie, Hot Rod becomes Rodimus again, and Optimus goes and tells the Autobot fleets or the Autobots to take the fleet and go back to Cybertron, as his, thus, thus by doing so, giving his last command. And he ends up basically sacrificing himself at the end of this, because the mission, the plan that the Quintessons wanted him to do, was to lead the entire Autobot fleet, if not all of the Autobots, into a detonator in the middle of space, and thus destroy them once and for all. But like I said, apparently they didn't expect, someone like Rodimus to give back the Matrix of leadership that, like I said, kind of countered that control that they had over him. Now, the reason I say there's a dark tone to this is because, like I say, the way it's presented, we see basically the place. Now, I mentioned an Autobot Mausoleum, I believe I mentioned that, but basically we find out that the Autobots, after the Great War that takes place in the 1986 movie, we find out that they have built this mausoleum that they set adrift in space. The mausoleum is basically a resting place for the Autobots that they lost. And like I said, after they build it and thus lay all the Autobots that they lost there to rest, they, I guess, set it adrift into space, hoping to never see it again, and just let the Autobots that are there, that have been laid to rest, rest. But they end up finding it because they're on the run from the Decepticons. Basically, the Quintessons have helped the Decepticons track the Autobots down, and by tracking them down, it allows the Autobots to find the mausoleum. Now, apparently, this was all part of the Quintessons' plan, because apparently they discovered where the mausoleum was, found out exactly what it was, and I guess basically that's how they gained access to Optimus's body, and was able to, make him into basically into a weapon, as he put it, at the end of the episode, towards the end of the episode. So, the reason, again, I say there's a dark tone, because we find out we find out who the Autobots are that are laid to rest. We see Optimus along with Daniel, Spike's son. We see Optimus for the first time after, for the first time since the movie, and the little little spiritual encounter he has with Rodimus in, I think, part 4 or 3 of Five Faces of Darkness. And it's the first time since that episode, and mostly the first time since the movie, that we see him in full we don't see like an upper bust of him or anything like in that spiritual encounter Rodimus had. That spiritual encounter that Rodimus had, I think, in about part 4 of the movie, Five Faces of Darkness. No, we see the full body, but we see him damaged. We basically see every place he was shot at. We see where Megatron shot him. We see the holes and stuff that are in his face, and his, like the little holes that are in his face, and then the holes in his body, and the cracks and all that. So we see all that. We also see Daniel, who runs scared after seeing, basically Optimus standing there, and a fully animated Optimus, as tfwiki.com puts it. We see Daniel run, and he ends up running into a door that opens, and out comes a dead Autobot corpse. Now, nobody knows who the Autobot corpse that falls out of that room is. Some have speculated that it's Ironhide, but I don't think it is, because Ironhide basically got blown to bits, in the movie. So it could be Ratchet, for all we know. It could be Prowl. We don't really know. It could be some unknown Autobot. Who knows? It could be Huffer. That's one way of looking at it, because you look at the shape of the Autobot corpse when it falls out of that room. falls, out of that room, and it basically could be described as being Huffer's corpse, or even Braun's, but I think it's more Huffer. But the point I'm getting at is those are some of the dark elements there, and then especially towards the end of the episode, you have Optimus sacrifice himself to save his fellow Autobots, and basically you see him basically piloting the ship, the flagship, if you will, and as it's being shot and it's being fired upon by the Quintessons, who notice this as well. As the firing upon it, we see Optimus slowly start to deteriorate even more. We see, like his eyes do one last glow, like they did in the movie. Then we see one eye is gone. It's like a little pipe is placed there. Half his side of his body burns a little bit more, and everything. And it's just kind of graphic in a sense. And even when he had his little fight, his little scrimmage, or his fight, I guess you could say, with Hot Rod, Rodimus, towards the end as well, when Rodimus or Hot Rod tosses him into the wall of the flagship, Optimus's, I think his right arm comes off, detaches, and it's like, whoa, this is kind of graphic. And then in a sense, you also see some Autobot fleet members kind of getting shot down and blown to pieces as well, during, towards the last 5-10 minutes in the last 10 minutes of the episode. So basically you see the kind of dark tone that I put there. But overall, Dark Awakening, like I said, is probably one of the darkest ones that Generation 1 has ever had. I'm not saying that Generation 1 didn't have any other dark episodes, but this was probably the darkest. Like I said, this is probably, the darkest that they've had. Now, one thing about this episode, besides that, I should say, one thing about this episode is we learned a lot of things. One major thing, like I said, is we found out that, and it's shown later on in the Return of Optimus Prime, the 2-part season 3 finale. It's shown that the Quintessons, who, like I said, we find out in Five Faces of Darkness, were the creators of the Transformers in the continuity, in Generation 1 continuity. We find out that they were able to restore Optimus, and this is followed up in Return of Optimus Prime. So they show that they can restore Autobots to life, even if temporarily or permanently. Now, another thing that was interesting about this, and I brought this up, was the Mausoleum. Like I said, the reason I bring this up is because of the Mausoleum, and this is the first time, like I said, we've heard about it. But the reason it's the first time is because we find out in the episode, and it says it here on tfwiki.net, that it is the final resting place of the chassis and servos of fallen Autobot heroes. According to tfwiki.net, it is a large barge set adrift in deep space, like I mentioned earlier, inside you can find a memorial known as the Veil of Remembrance. And like I said, it's the first time we've ever heard about it. Now, unfortunately, in the same episode that we find out about it, it's also destroyed because Optimus, Optimus, who's still under the control of the Quintessons, ends up setting off the self-destruct button and escaping in the ship. And what's interesting is you could see already that he's fighting between the controls. He's fighting the Quintesson's control, because at the time that he sets off the self-destruct button and escapes, Hot Rod Rodimus had already given him back the matrix of leadership, which was countering that control. So again, it was the first time we ever found out about it, and we find out that basically the Autobots like Rodimus, Magnus, Cup, Springer, RC, they're the ones that built it for the fallen comrades. And those fallen comrades are never seen, and neither is the mausoleum, because as the other Autobots escape to follow, to head back to Cybertron and kind of follow, to kind of escape back to Cybertron and kind of stop Optimus or find out what Optimus is doing, the mausoleum ends up burning up as it approaches a red sun. Now, according to TF Wiki, the mausoleum is also mentioned in other shows like Transformers Animated, where it exists in the Hydron system not far from Cybertron. And then in Knights of Unicron, the Veil of Remembrance is located on the Autobot Mausoleum, was the 10th venue for the Knights of Unicron of the 2014 to All One tour, I guess. It's also mentioned in the game's Transformers Legends with a similar situation as the G1 episode. And so, yeah, like I said, it was basically the first time we ever found out about it, the first time we've seen it, and of course it was the last time we saw it in that episode as far as Generation 1 goes. Now, according to Spike, when they first see it, it basically, he says it's the size of Manhattan. And as tfwiki.net puts it, they kind of say, kind of puts into perspective how much damage the Great War in the 1986 movie really did. So, yeah, it's basically, that was a big, sort of a big deal in a way, because when you watch the movie, the 86 movie as a kid, and even now, you would wonder, okay, what happened to the dead Autobots? We know they put them to rest, but where? Did they take them to Cybertron and put them there? What happened? And now you find out. So, overall, Dark Awakening, like I said, had its dark tones. Definitely could see that with the animation. Yes, it has some animation errors and continuity errors, but like I said, the animation style, in a sense, kind of set that dark tone right off the bat. Now, what's interesting about this episode as well is the fact that it is basically, it's one of the few Generation 1 episodes of any kind of Hasbro's. Well, I'm not sure it's the only one, but it's one of the first to have an alternate ending. And what I mean by alternate ending is when it got re-aired, later on, it had an addition to it. It had, according to tfwiki.net, it had Victor Carlin did a narrative at the end of Dark Awakening when it was rerun. During its first rerun, if you will, Victor Carlin did a short narrative, and basically he said, basically asked the question of, is this really the end of Optimus Prime? Find out in tomorrow's exciting episode. And if you didn't see the episode originally when it came out, you'd probably wonder, well, what do they mean? Well, basically what they did is to keep it within continuity, to kind of follow up on it, what Victor Carlin was narrating and hyping up to was the Return of Optimus Prime 2-parter, which was the Season 3 finale. So yeah, they basically took the 8th episode in Season 3, and when they reran it a lot later to coincide with the season 3 finale. So yeah, it had so yeah, it had Dark Awakening overall, like I said, had a dark tone. Over right off the bat, you could see that it was definitely one of the darker episodes they did. And like I said, the animation, despite its errors and stuff, definitely showed that. And and overall, overall, it's definitely probably one of the, like I said, one of the darker ones, and probably one of the best ones they have out there. And it's probably, like I said, it's also one of those episodes that you find out a little bit more about what happened, after to the fallen Autobots and all that after the Great War. You find out exactly where they were laid to rest, and stuff. So it's just, like I said, it's definitely one of those episodes that, like I said, has a dark, like basically is just dark overall, but is in a sense, I guess you could say, is a decent follow up to the movie itself, because not only do you get what we would think when it was originally aired the first time, one last appearance of Optimus and one last acknowledgement to the season 1 and 2 Autobots that died in the movie. But later on, we kind of get more of a, not just a follow up to the movie, but we also kind of get like a prelude to what some considered, even Family Home Entertainment acknowledged this one time on the VHS they brought out for it, the sequel, if you will, to Transformers the movie, The Return of Optimus Prime. So yeah, that was. So yeah, overall, Dark Awakening, had a lot going for it. It was dark. Like I said, I know I sound like I'm repeating stuff here, but it had one of the darker. It was one of the darker episodes out there. It was, it had its animation errors and stuff, but like I said, it really set a lot of things up, especially during its rerun, during its re-airing later on in season 3, when the episode started to get reran. It definitely set things up as a prelude episode to the return of Optimus Prime. So overall, I would definitely suggest, if you haven't seen it yet, and you should, check out Dark Awakening. And I know I may have spoiled stuff, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have already seen it, especially those that grew up on it like I did. But definitely check it out. It's worth your time. And that's really all I'm going to say, folks. So let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like. And I am out.